Bhante, when meditating, if I bring in metta from the world when inhaling and send out metta when exhaling, is this a good approach, or am I fooling myself and not really developing concentration?
Well, it is an ideology. Ideologically, it may be okay, but practically, it may not be very practical thing. But sending metta is the one we want to do. You know, sometimes people talk about the Buddha's, there is a posture in certain place in Sri Lanka where Buddha was, statue was holding hands like this, crossing his chest, and somebody very learned archaeologist in Sri Lanka said this was called para dukkha dukkhita mudra, that is suffering with the suffering of the world. If Buddha were to suffer with the world, he would have never had a single second peace. And if Buddha were to sorrow like others, he is not different from anybody else. Buddha never suffered from the other people suffering. That means we cannot bring other suffering into us, but we can cultivate in a very good healthy state of mind. We can cultivate metta. We don't have to get sick to share with other sick people. That is, I don't think, very practical. And therefore, I suggest you simply focus your mind on the breathing, as we suggest later on. And we begin with metta. That is our background, foundation, and stand. From that point, we develop our meditation, and then at the end, when the mind is totally pure, that is temporarily, then once again we share metta with everybody. Otherwise, while mind does not have metta, while all kind of impurities coming into the mind, we muddle up our mind, and that is not a good situation to share metta with everybody else. Any other question?
There are no other questions in the chat box. Does anyone, maybe that doesn't have access to the chat box, want to verbally ask a question?
I'd like to ask a question. It's on the same topic. I just tuned in a little late here. You said yesterday, if you have ill will, that you shouldn't just start practicing metta as an antidote, because it'll make your ill will stronger. Can you explain that, please?
Somebody said...
Did you hear that, Bhante?
No.
You've said in the past that we should not attempt to practice metta when we are experiencing unwholesome states like ill will.
Right.
Could you talk more about that?
Yes. Also, somebody said this morning that our sound is dragging. So is there any way to correct that? Instead of going it directly, it's rattling and dragging and so forth. You do that, let me answer the question.
Yes. Deal.
Okay. Yes, that is very true. When the mind is full of resentment, anger, and so on, it is not pure and clean. We have to practice metta with a clear and pure state of mind. Especially when the mind is full of anger, you cannot practice metta at all, because anger takes take hold of your entire mind and body. And you may increase even more anger whenever you think of a person or situation that caused you anger, then you may create more anger, more resentment and hatred and so on. How can I send metta to so-and-so who has been so mean to me, so nasty, done such and such a wrong thing to me, is so unjust, and so forth. And you keep bringing all kind of reasons for you to justify your anger rather than sending metta. You always ask yourself, how can I send metta to this fellow who has been so nasty to me without my fault, because you don't see your faults, and you think you accuse that person. You are totally innocent, you have done nothing wrong, but that person is always wrong, and so forth. This is how we justify our anger and cannot practice metta. Therefore, you take care of anger, resentment first, and let the mind be relatively free from anger, hatred, at least for short period of time. As soon as anger fades away from your mind, then immediately begin to practice metta. Even while you are practicing metta, if anger comes to you, you stop practicing metta and take care of anger and let it go. Once it is gone, you know the anger is no longer in you, and that is the time without thinking of that particular person. Another thing I mentioned, anger is the far enemy that you can see coming towards you. The opposite of anger is attachment, clinging, craving. That is the near enemy. It can disguise itself in the form of metta. And what you are doing eventually is not cultivating metta, but increasing a desire or lust or greed. And therefore, we have to be very mindful, careful, and that is why the Buddha, when we recite the discourse, you can hear, Buddha said, Etang sating aditya, this mindfulness. Metta practice is a mindfulness practice with patience. It is a kind of mindfulness, another kind of mindfulness of letting go of our resentment, anger, and so forth, and thinking of the benefit of metta. That is how we have to practice it. So, I think it is very good for you not to practice metta when you are in anger, mind is confused, and so on. Okay. We have a couple of more minutes to answer questions.
I have a question. The word hindrance itself.
Carol, can you get closer to your router? You're breaking up.
Oh, sure. Okay. I have a broken foot. It takes me a while to get there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. The word hindrance has a negative connotation.
Carol, I think the connection is not very good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll write it.
Okay.
I'll write it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bhante, another question. Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask a short one because we don't have much time. Thank you, Bhante. Are the principles of Kamma certain and permanent?
Principles of Kamma also impermanent. That is how we will be able to end Kamma. All the causes of Kamma also are impermanent like anything else. That is how when Kamma, that is how Kamma exhausts, comes to an end when you attain enlightenment or attain arahanthood.
Okay. This question pertains to non-self, Bhante. I understand that our body, mind, feelings, thoughts, perceptions change all the time and are impermanent. Therefore, there is no I or self. What I understand when we die, but I understand that when we die, our actions or kamma, together with desire or clinging, gives cause to rebirth. Since there is no self, how do we take our past actions and some of our basic roots or fetters, good or bad, to the next life?
That the root of all these bad actions are already seed, already planted in our the Kamma. That is why Buddha said Kamma Kettam. Kettam means field. We have already planted the seed of Kamma, of our deeds in the Kamma. And these are all mental states. And although they all change at the moment of death, even though all of them change, their potential, their power is there, which transport also through our what you call mental processes. And that is how, it is very crude example is gene. Gene is coming to us from previous generations, and we don't see them very clearly. Of course, these days with scientific methods, physics and so on, people can see that. Very much like that, although it is not physically visible, this mental power of greed, hatred, delusion, karma and so forth also are very powerful, and they project the next they project their power to the next existence. And that is how we understand. I cannot tell you anything from my experience because I have not died yet, although I came very close to that many times. But the last moment of our life, these potential come so quickly together and project its power to the next life. That is how, without self, all the karmic forces sort of transport from one life to another, or transfer from one life to another. This is a very difficult question to answer because people are so used to knowing things through scientific experiments. This is one area you can never make scientific experiment except those people like Ian Stevenson in University of Virginia many years ago did some research and came up with many cases of rebirth and so on. These are the information we use sometimes, but the actual process of birth, death and rebirth cannot be proven in any scientific way. With this, I must close the question and answer time. Now, let us start our practice with metta first, and then we continue the rest. Can you close all these pictures? Let us begin metta recitals. And you all, whoever can remember, join me, and others just listen to these words and let your thought of metta, feeling of metta, uh, join these words that I recite and try to cultivate metta in your own minds without any distinction, difference between one or another in any form. Just let metta grow in your mind. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds, whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth. May all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so at the
all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless
boundless
heart.
heart, one should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. With this very pure metta in mind, start focusing your mind on your breathing. As you breathe in and out, you notice the breath filling your lungs. When the lungs are full, you cannot breathe anymore. Then you experience a very brief moment of pause, and then exhaling begins. When exhaling is complete, there will be another brief pause, and then immediately inhaling begins. This is very natural, normal thing. This does not mean that you hold breath, control breath, or manipulate breath. Let the breath flow naturally in and out. As I repeated several times, this practice is a very natural practice, meaning we become aware of what naturally, almost automatically is taking place in our mind and body. And then as we breathe in and out, we feel the breath. That is a feeling aggregate, because feeling can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then we perceive the breath and the feeling. These are very subtle mental states. And then we pay attention to the breath. That also is a very delicate, concentrated attention. And then we have consciousness all along to be aware of what is really happening. When we have this, when we develop this, then slowly and gradually our mind gets very calm, relaxed, peaceful. The body becomes calm, relaxed, peaceful. Breath becomes calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Then our hindrances, such as greed, resentment or anger, restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness, and doubt, all these will vanish from our mind, and the mind remains very settled, calm, relaxed, collected, and united. And then we gain concentration. With the concentration, we can see all these steps even more clearly and precisely, and that would give us a great joy, happiness, and peace. With this in mind, let us practice. Dukkha patta ca nidukkha, bhaya patta ca nibhaya, soka patta ca nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all living beings. Friends, today for large number of population in the world normally used to go to churches to pray on Easter Sunday. Unfortunately, most of them cannot do that, even though few may, because of this virus. And this is the time we have to be very compassionate, united as one human beings to share our metta with all of them, all the sick people, all those who are relatives, friends, spouses, who also are, some of them are dependents, some of them are supporting those individuals, doctors, nurses, hospital helpers, all social workers, all philanthropists come forward to help this unfortunate situation, to help those victims to overcome their suffering, and with this pure, clean metta state of mind, let us together wish all of them to be peaceful, happy, and come back to their normal, regular life and live long in very good health. Now, you can ask more questions if you like.
Bhante, here's a question from someone here at the Bhavata community. Bhante, does making it to the supramundane magga suggest that being will at least attain stream entry in that life? That the being will at least attain stream entry in that life.
Say it again.
Does making it to the supramundane magga suggest that the being will at least attain stream entry in that life?
Supramundane magga is definitely the magga of attaining the least is stream entry. The same magga that everybody follows And then the moment that one overcomes a fetter, even one fetter, that person is on the path, supramundane path, to attain stream entry, and that eventually lead up to the attainment of full enlightenment. Okay,
Thank you, Bhante.
another question?
Bhante, during the Anapana meditation, after continued practice, I notice the meditation starts to become an automatic process, and I just try and observe what's happening without getting involved, like watching an automatic process. I also notice a tightness in the mind and then a release. Are these common in the Anapana meditation? And should I just continue with the meditation and simply continue to just observe?
Yes, this is very normal. Surely some people feel heavy head. Some people think it is headache. Some people even are afraid to meditate when they have this experience. I suggest you don't worry about all these symptoms, all these things that you experience. You simply continue to practice your meditation. In spite of all these things, all these will vanish. Then the mind comes to such a wonderful mental state that you would be very happy. You would even congratulate yourself for continuing the practice in spite of all these little discomforts here and there. Yeah.
Okay. Bhante, this is the question that Carol tried to ask, and she typed it. The word hindrance has a negative connotation, and yet we learn so much from them. Meditating / becoming aware of them, recognizing them, discerning them, working to overcome them, etc. Actually, there's no question here. So maybe this relates to the fourth foundation of mindfulness that you talked about last night, Bhante?
Right. Now, the statement is very clear. It is true. Although it sounds negative, certainly we can learn a lot from those mental states. I would agree with this statement, and I encourage everybody to continue the practice.
Okay. Here's a very different kind of a meta question for you, Bhante. A follow-on question on attainment. Is there anyone there to attain?
Yeah, that is very philosophical, very true. In conventional sense, there is, but in ultimate sense, there is none. So we talk always using conventional terms, I, he, she, it, and all these are the terms that we have to use in order to communicate our ideas. And yes, there is no permanent, eternal, unchanging one to attain this. This depends, dependently arising, dependently passing away. So this is the dependent origination process, I must say.
Okay. Bhante, here's a good one for you. Bhante, can you please tell me how meditation works for the beginners in the room?
Oh, meditation. It is meditation meaning cultivating, developing the mind. Cultivating. Just imagine when you cultivate the land, uh, cultivate some vegetable or grain and so forth on a land, you first have to clear the land of all trees and rocks and so on and prepare the land and then make it good land with good soil, and then you plant the seed. Then seed will grow and you find a good yield. Similarly, at the beginning, we have to overcome our all hindrances, fetters, and so forth, maybe one by one, slowly and gradually with lot of patience. And then the mind will be relatively clear, and then you cultivate your wholesome mental states like mindfulness, concentration, metta, compassion. These are the things that we have to thought or processes that we have to cultivate. And then the mind becomes very clear and pure, and we will be free from suffering. As long as mind has a lot of impurities, we have a lot of suffering. And therefore cultivation is just like cultivating a land to have very good produce. That is how it works. That is how it is practiced. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mm-hmm.
When I pay attention to my breath, I felt I became the breath. I'm aware of or maybe controlling the length of breath. When you say we need to breathe naturally, I don't know if I'm controlling my breath instead of making the instead of I don't know if I am controlling my breath instead of making the breaths.
Yes.
I just don't know how to observe and breathe naturally.
Okay. Your mindfulness follows your breath, and then mindfulness and the breath appears to be one. That is how you feel your experience, but that is something you don't have to worry, because mind will flow with the breath, inhaling and exhaling, and mindfulness will be noticing this inhaling and exhaling, and then you will see very calm, relaxing, peaceful function, flux, moving and moving and moving and moving without stopping anywhere. And so I would not think that you are controlling your breath, but you simply stay with the breath. Controlling breath means you take a breath and hold it and slowly let it go, and then sometimes you stay without breathing for few seconds and then slowly breathe. That kind of mental or breathing exercise is done, is called controlling. But here you let the breath flow in and out, and your mind flows with the breath in and out, and then you are conscious of it, you are aware of it, and you see the rising and falling happening very naturally, and therefore you are not controlling the breath.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mm-hmm.
Bhante, could you explain the concept of the seven factors of enlightenment and describe what each one is?
Where 7 factors of enlightenment, number 1 is mindfulness. That is where we are practicing. Mindfulness is the very most important practice. When we mindfully develop mindfulness, then more and more things, mental state arise. Then you investigate them in the same way, whether they are, to see whether they are, all of them are impermanent, uh, causing suffering, and without self, and so forth. You investigate which is wholesome, which is unwholesome, which brings you pain, which does not bring you pain, which brings you peace, which does not, and so forth. Every mental state you investigate. Then, as the truth revealed to you more and more, you become more and more energetic. And when you have more energy, you sleepiness, drowsiness all fade away. You will be very, very glad that you got involved in this practice. That is your joy. And that makes you more calm, relaxed and peaceful. That is your tranquility.
Mm.
When the mind is tranquilized or tranquil, then you gain concentration. When you have concentration, you see everything is in a state of equilibrium, that is your equanimity. So one leads to the other. They are all linked together in a very fine fabric of mindfulness. And that is why you come to the culmination of the practice. Once you have equanimity, that is the state where you can see suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, and the path leading to end of suffering without any bias, without any prejudice. That means when the mind is not equanimous, you tend to think, oh no, this is not suffering, this is a pleasure. Or this is something permanent, this is impermanent, so on and so forth. All this vacillation, wavering, all will vanish when the mind is in a equanimous state. And from there your practice is four noble truths. By the way, Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, Seven Fetters of Enlightenment, Four Foundations of Mindfulness are so linked, so connected. They are inseparable. So once you start one, then others naturally falls into place to the same stream. They all eventually develop. Your mind becomes totally free from suffering. So we start with mindfulness. That can be mindfulness in the body, feeling, and so on. And that will be a part of factors of enlightenment, number one. Every moment you practice mindfulness, it goes to the mindfulness enlightenment factor, or the basket, I would say. These are 7 baskets, so to say. Every time you practice concentration, that adds up to the concentration basket. When every time you have joy, that goes to the joy basket, and so forth. Anytime you practice, not only sitting in one place, and anytime you practice mindfulness, you increase your mindfulness practice. So uh, sometimes one may think, well, I have to practice mindfulness first and sit, and for that I have to sit in one place and so forth. No, you can practice mindfulness anytime. They all go to the same account, mindfulness account. Uh, and then investigation practice in a Dhamma discussion, reading a book, thinking with good what you call wisdom, understanding, discussing Dhamma. All these are factors of investigation of Dhamma, and they all go to investigation account. and so forth. Each and every one of them goes to the same account, and finally it will become fully perfect 7 factors of enlightenment. In fact, in expanded version, 7 becomes 37. But for contract or compact version, we have 7, but decompress, when you decompress it, we have 30.
Thank you, Bhante. I took some notes. I got mindfulness, energy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity, and wisdom.
Right now,
Is joy the one I missed?
7 factors of enlightenment?
Yeah.
No. Mindfulness, investigation,
That one too. Okay.
investigation, energy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. These are the 7.
Okay.
And then from there arises wisdom to see 4 noble truths exactly as it is.
Very good. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay?
Lunchtime.
Okay. So, Brian, my technician friend, reminded me of lunchtime, and we have to end this session, wind it down, and see you all this evening at 7 o'clock, and have a very wonderful.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Bhante.
Bhante.
Have a good day.
A wonderful day.